Hey guys, it's Frederik from the FWX podcast. I want to talk about a movie I recently saw which fits perfectly into my coverage of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that is, of course, the Thunderbolts asterisk. And I will say that for now, because, spoiler alert, the name changes at the end of this movie. And I want to talk about the characters, I want to talk about the story. I will be using pictures for that. Before I start, I'll give you the disclaimer. So, of course, my English is not my first language, and that means that I will occasionally still flub a word or not. Sometimes I do. I can do full videos without flubbing a word, I think, or not. That's anyway. And so also I sometimes go on a tangent, or I lose my train of thought, or I get to a point where I have an awkward pause. So I wanted you to know that occasionally that does happen. Also, sometimes I swear, depending on similar things like I said about the awkward pause. And so I want to talk about this movie. Of course, this is a recent movie. And so I want to talk about this one because it fits right into the timeline where we are right now with Marvel. I've been talking a lot about the MCU. And I will also cover Ironheart, as I have said before. And I've made my two Black Panther videos about those two movies, the first one and Wakanda Forever. Important to know here for the Thunderbolts is that I'm going to have to bring up a ton of characters, some that you already know because I've been covering some other series. For instance, the Captain America movies and the TV series that is part of that. And also, you can clearly see that I'm sitting somewhere else right now. So, in case you hear an echo, that's because I'm in a bigger location right now. Okay, let's start by talking about this movie, about the Thunderbolts. So we start off the movie in Malaysia, where we find Yelena Belova. Oh, by the way, here's the poster of the show. You can clearly see everyone that is vital in this movie. You have Florence Pugh's Yelena Belova. You have Bucky Barnes right here. You have Alexei Shostakov, aka the Red Guardian, from the Black Widow movie. You also have Taskmaster in a new outfit, also from the Black Widow movie. You also have John Walker from the Captain America TV series, the Winter Soldier, and I'm saying it wrong, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV series. And then you also have this lady right here that is Ghost from the Ant-Man sequel, the third movie. And she's played by Hannah John-Kamen. John Walker is played by Wyatt Russell. You have Bucky Barnes played by Sebastian Stan. You have, I'm gonna bring up the name for a moment, David Harbour as Red Guardian. You have, of course, Florence Pugh, and then Taskmaster played by Olga Kurilenko. And so there's a couple more characters to talk about in this movie, and I will do that in a moment. Okay. So, Thunderbolts is out. I can talk about this one now. And we start off, as I said already, in Malaysia, where we find Yelena Belova, Florence Pugh's character, as she jumps off a building, seemingly killing herself. until she unleashes the parachute that she's been holding on. And she goes all the way to a lower part of this building. In fact, this is the second biggest building in the world, both in the MCU and in our real life. And she has some things that she needs to go through before getting to the very bottom of this building. And so we see her in a... Well, first off, she needs to drop that parachute, and so she goes under a part where she can stash it, and she takes out a guard that is about to find her and that might potentially catch her off guard, but doesn't, and she takes this person out. She goes to a hallway, goes into there. There's a bunch of security guards there. They all attack her, but they prove to be absolutely futile against her, against a Red Room assassin, a former Black Widow. And she just goes through them like butter and gives you another interesting, what I like to call the Marvel action hallway scene. And I've talked about those before. For instance, you have that one in the third Guardians of the Galaxy movie, the Daredevil the Daredevil TV series, the early ones, and also the recent Born Again series also have quite a few of those. And so we see an overhead view of her fighting against these guys, and of course shows off all her skills with both guns and her grapples, the things that she pulls from behind her back, and also with the widow's bite, the kind of electrician, goddamn that word, the electricity kind of thing around her wrists. That's called the widow's bite. She uses them on a guy. And also the famous twirl action that she does, just like her sister Natasha does, as a former Red Room assassin and Black Widow herself as well. And so Yelena does that. She takes out these guys, gets out of there. I'm assuming that she killed all of them because she finishes this sequence by killing the last two with a gun. And so she goes all the way to the bottom. We find her back in the street where she is holding... Well, I'm gonna go back for a second, because this whole sequence starts with her narrating everything. Yelena is narrating all of this to someone inside a lab in this building, and she tells him how she's feeling and how she's going from job to job, not really feeling quite herself, not really finding a purpose, but just doing jobs and feeling like everything feels like shit. And she's trying to cope with the fact that she's been through stuff by doing these jobs. And so we find her back on the streets after that fight and her going down the building. And she has just taken out this laboratory. You see her looking back at the building as she's calling with her supervisor, who happens to be another person vital for this movie. I'm looking at the picture right here on my cast picture. That's this lady right here, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, as Valentina Alegre de Fontaine. She is Elena's boss, and she is also the former director of the OXE group. That's OXE spelled. And so Yelena has taken out that laboratory for her, and she's walking through the street with a guinea pig in her hands as she's talking. And she's saying like, yeah, I destroyed it. And then looks back at herself for a moment at that building, and of course it explodes in the typical fashion action hero kind of way, where the cool hero walks away from an explosion. And so we cut back to Desfontaine herself as she is at a meeting for the people in Congress in Washington, D.C., as she is facing impeachment. And for those who don't know what impeachment is, that is if you find someone to be found of illicit work in an effort to gain power or something like that, or have done a criminal act in some kind of way. And so Valentina is meeting with the Congress people inside the Congress building for her impeachment, and she's faced there by one of the other incredible actors that is not part of the Thunderbolts team in this movie, and I'm talking about this gentleman right here. Wendell Pierce is his name, and he plays Congressman Gary. And I'll double check that for a moment. I'm double checking this for a moment. Yes. It's unknown from where he is, because normally a congressperson is from a certain area of the United States, usually in a congressional district. And this leaves Valentina at this. It's not a trial, it's more a meeting where she comes face to face with the people that actually want to impeach her for all the things that she has done with the Ox group. And while she's doing this, she has her assistant, played by this lady right here, Geraldine Viswanathan, called Mel, probably an Easter egg towards another old Marvel Comics figure. And she has her assistant, Mel, dispatch her people. That includes Yelena, that includes John Walker, that includes Ghost. Her real name is Ava Starr. And Antonia Dreykov, the real name of Taskmaster, to a facility of Ox to go and take out what is left in that place. And we get scenes in that place with those three, starting with Yelena as she sees Taskmaster go in there. Either Taskmaster, no, I've got it wrong. It's not Taskmaster going in there, it's Ghost going in there. And the reason that Ghost is easily able to do this is because, and I will talk also about this when I cover the Ant-Man movies, especially the third one, she has an unstable... Hold up a second, I'm getting the information here. Just a second. She can phase through objects. That's the easy way to say this. There's a more scientific way of saying this, but the crux of that is basically that she can phase through objects. Like, for instance, I'm sitting right now at a table, so she would phase right through this table right now. Hold on, it's here in the information. So the scientific way of saying this is she is normally in a constant state of molecular disequilibrium. In other words, no, I'm not gonna go there because, and I just briefly want to mention though that, and this is a little spoiler in case you haven't seen those Ant-Man movies. Ghost is able to phase through things because she spent time inside the quantum realm and she has garnered powers from there. Well, sort of. The story goes a little different, but the thing is that the things that have been inside the quantum realm are part of her now too, and so that makes her able to phase through things. But she has to wear a specific kind of armor for that, and so she's able to do that. She can phase through things like no other. And so we see Yelena meets, more like fights her, and also Taskmaster and John Walker at the same time, as they all come together in a room filled up with information all over, and also with a mysterious box. And here they are. They face off against each other and they start to fight, and it shows off all of their skills, how strong John Walker is because he took the latest super soldier serum in the TV series that I mentioned before. You got Ghost with the intangibility. That was the way I initially wanted to say that. The phasing through everything. And then you have a Taskmaster who can basically copy people's fighting abilities. And of course Yelena with her incredible know-how of combat and fighting and shooting and all of that. And so you got 4 well-trained, basically super soldiers facing each other. The one a bit more different than the other. And in this ensuing fight, Ghost gets the upper hand, and she, very intentionally, but also kind of accidentally, kills Taskmaster with a shot in the head. And while this is all happening, stuff is flying around because these guys are using guns, for instance, and nothing can stop that except maybe a vibranium shield like the one that John Walker is using, if it is a vibranium shield, because he's made one. And I think I've talked about this at the end of my coverage for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV series. We kind of get like an after credits scene with him where we see him making a shield. Okay, so during this fight, Taskmaster dies, and one of the things in this place is this huge mysterious box. And all of a sudden, the 3 of them, Yelena, John Walker, and Ava, that's Ghost, you see that a person has emerged from this mysterious box, and he announces that he's here. He realizes that he's not alone, and he tells just a little about himself, and that is his name, Bob. And what others don't know, and what actually he does know as well, is that he was in a suspended animation pod in this room. And in this moment, the 4 of them, especially those 3 that were sent there, realize that they have been sent there to be burned along with all the evidence that is present in this facility. And so they have to work together and they have to work together to get out, to escape this place, as it is actually an incinerator, so that every single thing of evidence and person can be destroyed, can be burned alive as well. But luckily, the three of them, the four of them in this case, work together as they make sure that the elevator... There's a couple of things that they need to do to get out. For instance, the defunct elevator is no longer in use because it's defunct. I know I said that 2 times or 3 times now. And that leaves them only with one option. And they crawl up the shaft of the elevator because the elevator thing itself, the cabin, is all the way down at the bottom. And it's a huge thing that goes way up. And John Walker is kind of an alpha kind of guy. And he thinks himself to be the best and be better than anybody else. So he tries to show off. But ultimately, Bob comes up with the idea that they go up back to back up the shaft so fast as possible as they can. And as we get an above shot of them, we clearly see that they are walking in the same way as the asterisk in the display of this movie. It's very little on this poster, but you can see right here that there's an asterisk. And so they go up in that kind of form. And so they finally get to a door, and here again John Walker shows off that he thinks he's better than the others, and this comes almost at the end. I'm gonna rephrase for a moment. So he tries to get up by himself, disrespecting the others, disregarding the others, and they all think, you know, what an idiot. And they are strewn across this long shaft. I know I keep saying that word and it sounds weird, of course, but that is what it is anyway. And so they're kind of scattered, but they manage to get out nonetheless. That leads them to another hallway, and we get some more fighting. And I'm gonna go a bit faster now with the information, of course, too. And in these moments with Bob, you have both Yelena and Walker that experience a kind of vision of their worst memory. And for Yelena, it's the stuff from her days in the Red Room, while for Walker, it's something a little bit more mundane when he is supposed to be looking after the son he now has, the little baby in his box. But he's just consumed with what people are saying about him and how he's a B-star, basically, in Captain America offshoots that couldn't be better than the original or the other two. One of those includes Bucky. And so they finally get out. And Valentina, in the meantime, learns that they have survived. And that this Bob figure was, amazingly enough, he has survived something that we later get the information of, but I'll already say this because I want to go a bit faster now. So Bob was a guy named Robert Reynolds, and he volunteered in something called the Sentry Trials because he wanted to make a better person of himself. And initially he was thought to be dead, but now he appears to be alive. As I said, he was stuck in that mystery box. And so the four of them try to get out. we get some fight scenes, another hallway fight with the group, especially with John Walker as he tries to be the alpha of the group again. In the meantime, Valentina has made her way over there, and by the time that she is actually on site and about to go into the building, the three of them, Yelena, Walker, and Ghosts, are escaping and getting out, and they use the Trojan horse kind of trick where they put on the enemy disguise, the enemy gear and clothing. So in this case, special forces kind of clothing with a helmet and everything, because the ones that came in to fight them, to kill them, are also wearing like military scrubs basically, and with a gas mask on, and so they're basically unidentifiable. And we get a moment with Walker and Yelena as they're trying to get out, while Ava has actually gone ahead and actually got a truck so they can get out of there. And so with Yelena and Walker carrying Bob, they stuff him in the back of this truck, they get into the front, and they're trying to get out of this base on the outside, and they're stopped by the others on sites, the other special forces types. And by the way, these special forces types, they have a leader themselves who also plays in this movie, and that's this guy right here, Chris Bauer. He plays their commander named Holt, who's like I'm guessing a SWAT special forces type that Ox uses. The kind of Black Ops kind of guy, I'm assuming. And so he tries to command this group. He's listening to Val's commands to him, and he gives them to his men, of course, as supposed breaches go with special forces and SWAT and all of that. And so as the four of them are trying to get out, Bob realizes that they're not getting out of there without some much needed questioning from the people that are on site trying to get them. And he creates a diversion by drawing everyone away, and he does this by shooting a gun load of ammo, allowing the three of them to escape. And that leads to the rest of these special forces types to unleash all the ammo in their guns on him, and he supposedly falls to the ground, and the three of them ride away in a truck, and they don't realize that actually he is getting back up despite having been shot. And this happens normally by standing up himself, but Bob is not doing that. He is actually ascending. Like he rises off the ground as if he's about to fly off somewhere. And it does happen. He flies right up and crashes through clouds and all of that to, I think, the stratosphere. And at that point he goes forward thinking he can fly, I think, and he crashes onto a place a bit further away. And the special forces types gather him, and because he is just knocked out cold, because he has no idea what he's doing or the powers that he possibly has. And so these guys, the special forces types, take him away in a transport by helicopter and they take him to a place that we've seen before and that I've talked about before in my Avengers coverage, and that is the now bought place by Val, the original Avengers Tower that she now calls the Watchtower. And so they take him there. And Val is about to introduce him to the press as a new person with super abilities that could stand in as a protector of Earth, as a Earth's mightiest hero, similar to the Avengers. And she's hoping that this PR stuff will stop the people in Congress from impeaching her. And in the meantime, while this is all happening, we get another glimpse of a character in this group, and that is our guy Alexei Shostakov, aka the Red Guardian, played in this movie. I'll show him by the cast photo by David Harbour. And in terms of group or really found family, Alexei is Elena's father from their service during the Red Room. Because he is not her father by blood, but he was the one that looked over her and Natasha, along with Melina, their supposed mother, played in the Black Widow movie by Rachel Weisz. And I'm gonna cover that movie at one point as well. And so he overhears everything because he was asked to chauffeur De Fontaine and her assistant, and he overheard those details about everything. And so he tries to go and pick them up after they have lost their truck. And this, of course, becomes a bit awkward, and because of everything in the past for Alexei and Yelena, it's very awkward, despite him trying very much to be as friendly to her. I'm gonna drink for a moment. And so he finds them, the three of them, and he kind of has delusions of grandeur, and he thinks that this is a group capable of helping people, rescuing people, and saving the world, possibly. And so he refers to this group as the Thunderbolts, which is a reference to the loser soccer team that Yelena used to play on while they were a Soviet family, a family of spies pretending to be a normal family in America. And quickly they are found by the agents of Val, and they are underway in the limo that Red Guardian has, which he also calls the Red Guardian Limousine Service, because he actually drives with a red limousine. But they are then saved themselves by the other main character. Well, they're all main characters, of course, but someone we have seen a lot of before and who I've talked about a lot, and that is Bucky, of course. Played by Sebastian Stan, of course. This guy. And I've talked about the latest movie that he was in too, which was the... Oh crap, I'm blanking on the name for a moment. I'm gonna look it up for a second. It should be the last Captain America movie, where he announced to Sam Wilson, Anthony Mackie's character, that he was going to be a representative for Congress now. And so that has happened. Bucky is now a congressperson, but he has quickly found out that that is a tough thing to do for someone with such a checkered past as he is. And so he has also learned of the impeachment attempt to get Val impeached. And he's working with Congressman Gary to help him out. And so he's got all that information. And he's come to found them in wherever that it is in the United States. And he apprehends the agents from Val, the special forces types, in their tank convoy, I will call it. And he shows off kind of in the same way that the Terminator does in the Terminator movies, especially with the whole shotgun thing. If you have seen those movies, you will know what I'm talking about with that. And so we get... Make it easier for myself for a moment. So Bucky takes out that convoy from Val's agents. He captures them and gets them around. What I really mean is he gets a call because a scene that I haven't mentioned yet was that he met Congressman Gary at a kind of a fundraiser for the Ox Group, or for Val, now as the director of the CIA, as she's trying to get a buck to possibly also bribe the people in Congress and stop them from impeaching her. And so Bucky met up with Wendell Pierce's character, Gary, at that moment, and he started to flirt with Val's assistant, Mel, played by, I'm going to show her picture again, the incredible Geraldine Viswanathan. I hope I'm saying that name correctly. And so that leads to them conversing through phone, via calls and texts, especially calls. And so she calls him back as he's trying to make her turn on her boss. Yeah. And Mel does seem like the type to turn. And so in this moment, as Bucky has all four of them, that is Alexei, and Yelena, and then Ava and Volker, all in cuffs, including one that he got from that fundraiser that Valentina was trying to bribe someone from Congress with. And a neat little detail that I wanted to point out for a moment. And so Bucky learns here through Mel about Bob. And so with that information and with the group confirming it, Bucky decides to join a group, and they head to New York in some way. We don't see how. Probably with a flight of some kind, either a helo or a freaking airplane. Yeah. And in the meantime, while that is happening, we meet up back with Val and with Bob, who's now in her custody inside the watchtower. And she's trying to manipulate and brainwash him into joining her and serve as her personal superhero. Like a Superman kind of figure. only in Marvel version now, because for many people, Bob or Sentry, which is his superhero name, is seen as a very powered superhero and villain too. More about that in a second. And so she succeeds in this. She gets him a new outfit. She blondes his hair as well. And we get the group. We find the group also back in New York as they finally get there. We get a brief moment with the group, and especially the two people I want to point out for a moment, in a bit of a funny back and forth, is that Bucky and Red Guardian are talking about the super serum that they got. And Bucky says, I got mine from the original, from Hydra. While Bucky says, I got cheap Soviet version. So basically confirming that they can do similar things, but they are different in their methods and their ways of fighting, despite having the same kind of powers. Yes, that's what I wanted to say, because, well, as I've talked a bit now about the capabilities of all these people. You have someone that can phase, you have people that can fight very well and have a strength as their superpower, their main superpower basically. Those three super soldiers, Alexei and Walker and Bucky, all have super strength as part of their super soldier being and much more enhanced abilities as well. And then also Yelena, who is more of a athletic fighter and shooter and a bit more of a team leader more. And so we find a group that break into the watchtower at the ground. They have a brief fight where they show off their abilities again until the intercom comes over with Val on it, telling them to come in. There was no need to fight any of our guards. And so the Thunderbolts go up in an elevator all together, and they get to where in the past, before Tony had made that drink trying to convince Loki to stop fighting initially. And in that same place, they found Valentina, who has convinced Bob to join her side. And we get the glorious I want to say exposition. There's a better word. A presentation. We get the glorious presentation of Bob, or his real name is Robert Reynolds, as the Sentry, a blue and yellow colored superhuman with many abilities, including flying. And so the group learns that Bob is now following all of Val's orders, and they fight him. We get some interesting scenes with them, and despite them really trying, Bob very easily overpowers them. But because he's built such a rapport with them, he finds that I really don't want to fight you guys. I don't want to kill you guys, despite being better now, because someone was actually looking after me. Because just like all of them, in some ways, he is broken. He wanted something to do, and that's why he initially volunteered for that project, Project Sentry. And these are all you know, husks of people at different points in their lives as they have been through so much. Bucky, with his checkered past as an Hydra assassin. Same thing for Yelena as a Red Room assassin and Black Widow. Red Guardian, kind of the same thing, only a bit more cheerful in his way. And the same thing for Ghosts, Eva Star, who had to go through a very intense experimentation. And of course, Taskmaster as well was supposed to be killed, but is really killed now. And so that leads to Bob really getting a godlike delusion of superiority. And because he says, I don't want to kill you, I don't want to hurt you, he starts to turn on Val. And he kind of forces her up a wall in this place. And he really makes it clear that I am not your puppet. I won't do what you ask me to do. Only for him to collapse to the ground as Val's assistant, Mel, again played by the amazing Geraldine Viswanathan, manages to incapacitate him for a moment with the kill switch that Val was about to use because he was choking her and backing her up against the wall. And so he finds him back in the same kind of desperation from before the project and the trial that he went through to become a better person. And this triggers his more destructive side. And we see him become completely black, except for his eyes. And there's a name, or a word really, that all throughout this movie people have been using to refer to the emptiness that they feel. Or rather, the other word for it, the void. And that is the dark side of Bob, who is now a fully grown superhuman with, as it's said in the comics and also in this movie, the strength of 1,000 suns. Or something like that. It's around that kind of number. And so he becomes the embodiment of depression and insecurity. And he starts to engulf New York City into this large, gaping void of darkness. And he's trapping all the citizens in dimensions where they're experiencing, God damn, that's a tough word. They are experiencing their most darkest memories that they have been through. And as the group is trying to get away from all of this, they realize, especially Elena, that the only way to deal with darkness is to face it head on and lead with the fearlessness that you can have. And the thing also that helps her is the very tenderful conversation that she has with her supposed dad, with Alexei. And so, while everyone is trying to get away from becoming a permanent shadow, she goes up to the growing mass of darkness and steps into it. And the group realizes this too. Alexei, Ava, Walker, and Bucky all realize that the only way to deal with this kind of madness, this darkness, within us is to face it head first and deal with it. And so they follow her into this place. And here, Yelena faces her past as a Black Widow. And she has to deal with the fact that as a kid in the Black Widow program, she had to lure an old friend into the woods so that she will be killed for being a lesser person and so incapable of doing the future job as a Black Widow. And that leads Yelena to deal with this in the kind of escape room way that we know in our real lives, but then in a way more darkful way. And so she's actually learning her lessons with these kind of places, and she breaks from there into a new place, and she finds Bob in a recreation of the bedroom where he slept when he grew up, where he was also hiding from the fact that his father was abusing both his mother and his siblings, because he had been told all his life that he makes things worse. And as things start to spiral, the other Thunderbolts join Yelena and Bob, and together, just like in this picture, by the way, that I love, they show up for Bob, for Yelena, and they manage to travel to the initial point where everything happened for Bob, which was the experimentation in Malaysia, where he, as such a loner, finally found a way for him to become a better person, as he was trying to improve himself after he became a drug addict. He was doing a lot of meth at the time. And to make things interesting, that is in the same place that we started this movie, with Yelena going off this building, the supposed second highest building in the world, in Malaysia. And in this laboratory inside, they find the void, the darker half of Bob, as he is gaining power, because Bob is really feeling it. And so they get overpowered, they're strapped to walls, they get tied up to the things around the room, and they're trying to get out while Bob tries to gather himself. And initially he starts to give in to this feeling because he starts to beat up the void, and he doesn't realize yet that answering anger and evil with more of that will make you only become more, and it will make you about as dark as darkness itself, to become emptiness, to become the void. And the thing that really pulls him out of this in this moment is the others confirming their compassion for him, and this found family that they now have as the Thunderbolts. And we get some endearing moments with them, and as they confirm that to him in this moment. But then because they are compassionate of him, they break free from their ties and their holds that the void was having on him, and they intervene in this moment. They confirm that they believe in him and possibly love him. And their solidarity gets Bob to the point of where he finally gathers himself and he overcomes the void, and light starts to return to New York City. And all the victims that were shades are freed. And not too far off from where they are, they find that Valentina is there, and they want to do some things for all the things that she made them do. And right now, with this whole affair in New York City, but then she uses what she was about to do with Sentry to her advantage, and she manipulates them by having them in a press conference as she introduces them to the public as the new title that Marvel got into at the very last moments of this movie, The New Avengers. But, well, she thinks that this is a good thing for her now. You have Yelena. I'll show her a picture again for a moment because I love this poster. She comes up a little bit more to Valentina as she's trying to give this presentation, this press conference to everybody else in the press corps. And she very silently says to Valentina, "We own you now." Basically doing the reverse of what she was about to do, manipulating her because they have all the evidence. In fact, they are the evidence. And that is where the movie supposedly ends. But no Marvel movie ever goes out without an after credit scene or a post credit scene, or maybe even both. And so we get both a post credit scene, well, especially a post credit scene where some time later, I believe it was 14 months, and they discuss, the New Avengers discuss with Bob as they are feuding actually with Sam Wilson, who has just come out of his adventure with Thunderbolt Ross in his very first movie that I also talked about in my coverage of the Captain America movies, where Sam Wilson is now Captain America. And so the two teams are feuding over the fact that they got the name and the others don't. Because the initial Avengers that I've talked about before in my Avengers coverage, Yelena's sister, Natasha, you also have Captain America, Steve Rogers, you have the Hulk, you have Iron Man, you have Hawkeye, and there's one more, Thor. And they are all not present anymore on Earth or for the Avengers at all. And so they can be present. And so Sam wants to go and gather a new team. And so they're having kind of a copyright problem, because which team has the right name now? And the New Avengers think that they should sue the other team for trademark infringement. Plus, they also have a new problem going on in outer space. And while this is also happening, they get a distress signal from something. And we get a tease for the new movie that is to come from Marvel, the Fantastic Four, as an extra dimensional space. I want to say station or flight, but that's not completely right. An extra dimensional spacecraft crashes into their Earth. Crashes into space, full ablazing, going through outer space, and it has a giant Thor on its cover. And that is where this movie ends. So that's all the information and the story of the Thunderbolts asterisk, because it's supposed to be the New Avengers. And I want to thank you for listening and watching me ramble and talk about this movie. So thank you all for that. This is a very recent movie. I saw it only yesterday evening. I loved it. It is one of my favorite Marvel movies already. I wouldn't know already where to put them in the list of movies that Marvel has out. But when it comes to the last phase that they just did, phase 5, it is at the very top of my list. So, thank you guys for listening to all of this. I'm Frederik of the FWX podcast. Before I go, one last thing. If you can like this video. You can also subscribe to the channel for more of this kind of content. You can also share this with friends and family and people online, like here on YouTube. You can also comment about the story, what you loved, what you didn't love, but please do it in a polite and friendly and kind way. And that is all from me. Thank you so much. I've been Frederik of the FWX podcast, and I will see you in the next video.